Hey guys, Emperor here, and today I've got a really cool video for you guys. It's a AoE attack, and I actually recorded this video earlier, but I didn't realize that I had a voice changer on, so that was pretty unfortunate. But yeah, I actually fixed that, and I'm going to show you guys the AoE attack, and then I'm gonna show you guys how I made it. So let me go ahead and showcase it. You hold down a key, it charges up, and you do a little AoE attack, and it launches players away from you. You can also release it earlier, but it'll do a little effect instead of the big one. See, and it scales. So yep, it's pretty cool. You can blast people around with it. It hits multiple targets, and yeah. So the animation is actually made by Flo. I'm gonna put his links in the description, so you guys go check him out. I think he did pretty good with this animation. And yeah, let's get right into the tutorial. So first things first, we're gonna do our setup. It's the same as always. We're gonna make the folder for the map. We're gonna put our map inside. We're gonna make, oop, did I duplicate that? I meant to just add another folder. And then we're gonna make a little effects folder, and then we're going to put our replicated effects in here. I'll give you guys the effects except for the animation. You guys will have to make your own animation. And then we also have the camera shake module this time. So it's in here. I'll give you guys this module as well. I'll give you guys both of these folders. And then we also need to add a remote event. And this is all very standard if you've watched any of my videos. So a lot of you guys probably know exactly what to do here. And then we're gonna need a local script and a server script. That's pretty much the setup. So let's get into the code. So for the local script, we still have the basics that I almost always do. We define our player variables and then service variables. It's the same as always. We have player, character, humanoid, user input service, replicated storage, debris, and also our tween service. So next we're gonna have our states. Debounce is kind of like, are we on cooldown? If false means we're not on cooldown. And then charging is just if we're charging our move. And then remote is equal to that. And here are some constants. These are the things that you guys are gonna change depending on what you want. So the cooldown for mine is gonna be 0.3 seconds, and that's because I just want to be able to spam it right now and show you guys a lot without having to wait a long time. But typically, yeah, you would make that a lot higher. We're also gonna do our basic raycast parameters. This almost never changes within my code. And then we're also gonna put in this starter, the initialization script for the camera shaker, which is this is the default script. Make sure you paste this exactly as I typed it. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our user input service. So user uis.input began connect function. Oops. And then the two parameters are input and game processed event. So if it's a game processed event like typing, then we just return, and we don't want to do anything if the input that we detected is something that Roblox handles. Otherwise, if our input's key code is equal to the key that we want, and we are not on cooldown, then humanoid.walk speed, right? We're gonna slow our player down here so they can barely move so it isn't too busted. And then we're gonna set our cooldown to true, and then we're gonna set our charging also to true, because this is when we start charging our move. So we're gonna need to tell the server that we've started charging, but we don't necessarily have to do the server script right now. We're just gonna set up the data that we are going to pass over there, which is the character, the action. The action is obviously charge, right? And then we're going to tell the server that, yep, this is what we were doing. So we're going to send over that data to the server via the remote. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to do the charging. So I'm going to do local mod equals 1. Mod is like the modifier. It starts at 1 because that's like the lowest charge possible, and anything higher is just going to scale off of the default size, which is going to be 40 in diameter, like 40 studs in diameter. That's pretty big. Okay, so for the charging, we're just going to repeat and wait 0.1 seconds, I guess. Or actually, we're going to use task.wait because it's better. And then we're going to do mod plus equals. That means just we add 0.05 to it. Now we're going to stop charging if charging is false, right? That means like, hey, we've stopped charging. Why are we still charging? Let's not charge anymore. Or our modifier exceeds the maximum value in which we want it to charge. In my case, I only want it to go up to 1.5 times the default value. So as soon as it exceeds 1.5, I'm going to stop the charging sequence. The other condition in which our charging should stop is if our character dies, right? We don't want it to keep charging if our character is literally dead, right? So we're gonna do it like that. And if our player did actually die, then we just go ahead and return, and we don't do anything else. Now, if it's not any of that and we just stop charging where we've hit the maximum limit, then we should do the actual effect and all of the damage and basically do the move here. So we're going to load an animation, which is rs.effects.animation. We're going to play that animation, and after that we're going to wait the wind up time, which is 0.6 seconds in my case. It could be a different value for yours. And then we're going to shake the camera, and here I'm just going to basically explain the values here. Magnitude is the strength, or like how big the camera shake is. I don't want it to be that big, so it's going to be 2. Roughness is how sharp the camera shake is. I want it to be pretty rugged and sharp, so I'm going to set it to 5. Fade in time and fade out time are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm sure you guys can figure that out. And we're going to clear our data and set our data equal to something else, right? Character is still equal to character, and the action though is going to be different. It's going to be release rather than charge. And we want to send over the positioning of the hitbox and whatever, so that's equal to character.humanoid blue part .cframe. This also works for R6, so for any R6 users out there, rejoice. And our charge is just going to be the modifier. Cool. And after this, we are just going to go ahead and fire these to the server. We're going to fire the data. Nice. And then once we fire the data, data just goes back to being nil. So we've got our little input here, and then it's going to work and everything, but we need a way to set charge to false, or basically stop the charge. And for my case, I'm just going to do it to when you let go of the key. So input ended, connect function, input, right? That's how it is. And if our input key code is equal to our key, and we are currently on cooldown, right? That means, or honestly, it just changes to and we are currently charging, right? Then our charging should become false, and that will stop our charge code here, and it will launch the attack there. And once we, finish charging and we do the attack, our player should be able to move again. So W, and then we're gonna task.wait. We're gonna wait our cooldown before setting our cooldown to false. Fantastic. Now when I run this script, what's gonna happen is I can play my animation and I'll stomp and there's gonna be camera shake, there's not gonna be any effects. Boom, I stomped. There's no charge effect, so I can't even tell if I'm charging unless I'm moving. But yeah, it pretty much works. See, I can just tap it once and boom, it does the little stomp. Nice. Now obviously we want to see the effect, right? So let's go ahead and code the effect. It's pretty simple this time, nothing too crazy. The two values I'm going to send into the effect function is the C frame, or the position and orientation of the hitbox, and the modifier. So I'm going to access our little sphere here. I'm going to set its C frame to our C frame that we passed in. I'm going to set its size to 0, and I'm going to parent it. Now the next thing I want to do is actually want to play the animation, right? So I'm going to make it become the size of 40, 40, 40 times the modifier, so that way it'll scale within 0.4 seconds, and I also want it to fade out. So I play that animation, and then I also want the particles to play and scale the particles too. So for every particle within the sphere dot attachment, which boom, those are all the little particles. Here, let me put this in the game so you guys can actually see. I'm gonna go in there and select these, and then boom, see, those are the particles. Looks pretty cool. And yeah, that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm just playing the particles, and I'm gonna scale it with the modifier, so it's speed, because you want it to go further if the hitbox is bigger. And we also want to emit more if the hitbox is bigger, so it doesn't look too lackluster. So I'm going to use my debris service here, and I'm going to add our sphere to it because I don't want it to stay in there and like break everything. Now the next piece of code here is pretty weird for people who don't use C-frame a lot, but I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste it from the finished script that I have. I can't go in here and explain everything, but I can basically give you a big little rundown. So the outer loop right here is the number of rings that form. The segments here and this inner loop here make each ring, and the segments are just how many segments the ring has. And the basic math behind it is that I get a C-frame position, right? Here's the C-frame, it's looking that way, right? I rotate that a certain amount of degrees, and then I move forward, and then boom, that's where the rock goes. So basically it'll make circle, because every time I'm looping I change the angle until it reaches the beginning, so it'll make kind of like a circle. And there's some animations here. I move it under where it's supposed to be, and I use the raycast here in order to find like the color, material, transparency that it should be, and I set it all here. And the position in which the ray hits the ground, so that's where the rock should kind of rise to. So I move it under the map a little, and then I push it up, and after 0.3 seconds I move it back down, and then I delete the hitbox in 2 seconds. Honestly, you can make this like 1.5 seconds. I think that's kind of good, just so like it's a little you remove it quicker. And then every ring I wait, so it's like it expands outward like a shock wave. So yeah, now that we have our little effect code, right, we just want to actually see the effect. So let's go right before we fire to the remote to the server, we do the actual effect. I'm going to call the effect here. The C-frame is just going to be the same as data.cframe, so I'm going to use that, and the modifier is just mod, right here, mod. I'm going to run it, and now all of the effects should work on our client at least, besides the charging, because I haven't done the charging yet. But yeah, as you can see, it all works. It matches the material, right? And there's all like the little shockwave effect, the debris particles, all that, so it looks nice. Cool, we have all that, but it's not functional. It doesn't do damage, doesn't do anything. Other players can't see it, right? how do we do that? Well, we need to go onto our little server script here, and this next part is pretty standard. I'm going to reference the replicated storage, the debris service, and also the remote. Now when our remote fires to the server, so on server event, we connect it to a function. The first value is always player, the next function is whatever we passed, and in this case we passed in data to the server, this little data table, so I'm going to call it data. This never changes. Don't forget about this. It's always going to be the first one. Anything you send is going to be after it. So if our action is if our data.action to release, then we do the release, we do all the damage, whatever. Else if data.action is equal to charge, then we do the charge. I'm going to do the charge first since it's easier. So for the charge, all I'm doing is grabbing the particle in here called charge. I parent it to an attachment with that I make here. I name the attachment charge attach, and I parent it to the humanoid root part, and I parent the particle to the attachment. So that way when we charge, it'll do the little charge particle animation. Now, once we release, right, we want to remove the charge particle, the charge attachment actually, because if we destroy the charge attachment, it's going to destroy the charge particle as well. So boom, when I release, I do that. Now the next part I'm going to do is the hitboxing, and the hitboxing kind of never changes with my code either. The only thing that changes this time is that the size is going to be 40, 40, 40 multiplied by our modifier, data.charge. And that's just the modifier from over here that we incremented. We're just sending that over, and now it's called charge. Alright, so the next part, right, this part right here, I'm just setting up a touch touch event so I can use get touching parts, and then hits is just a table of players that I've hit. Now the next thing I do is I'm going to loop through everything within hitbox get touching parts. That returns like an array of everything that is touching our hitbox part right here. The material, transparency, all that doesn't really matter. You can change that to whatever, because like we're going to destroy the hitbox the instant it is made and after we've gone through everything. So for every thing that touches our hitbox, right, or is within our hitbox, then, and I named it V, right? If V is a humanoid, and basically what I'm doing is I'm checking if the V's parent, which is typically the character, has something inside of it called the humanoid, then that means we've hit a humanoid character, or just a player, or anything that can be hit. If we've hit something, and the thing that we've hit is within range of the hitbox, since you know the hitbox is actually a cube here, but we want it to be a sphere. So if it's in the radius of our actual hitbox, then you know that means it's actually within it. If we didn't do this, that means like the things that are on like the corners of the box, right, it would look like they couldn't be hit, right, but they'd still be hit, so that isn't good. So that's what we're doing this for. We're just gonna check the distance between it, and if it's less than or equal to 20 multiplied then by the modifier, then that means yep, we've hit something, and we should do damage and check if it's our own player. So that's what we're gonna do next. We're gonna check if it's our own player, right, and if it's within the hit list, that means if we've never hit it before. If you've already hit it, we don't want to hit it again. That's what this basically does. So if we haven't hit it, then we've hit it now, so we're going to set that to true. We're going to do damage, and I scaled the damage with the charge as well, but if you don't want to, you can just get rid of the multiplication there. And then I'm going to do a little bit of like velocity stuff. Yeah, and that's just the position, the origin position minus the position of our hitbox dot unit times 80 times the data dot charge, and then multiplied by, and then we add some upward direction to it so that it kind of like blasts them off, right? It's just some basic vector math here. If you don't know what this means, you could search .unit up and search how to manipulate vectors in Roblox. Just search that on Google or use the dev API. So now that we've done like all of the damage and the velocity, the knocking back, all that, we need to send the effect to the other players besides our own player who already sees the effect. And that's what this does. We fire the same data that we sent to the server back to the other client. So I'm checking if a player inside the player get players basically is not the player that called this event, right? Then we should send the data back. And then after that, we're just gonna destroy the hitbox and then set hits to nil so it destroys itself early. Cool. We're sending data back to our client, but our client is not receiving any data, so we need our client to actually receive that data. And that's pretty simple. I'm just gonna paste that in there. It's very short. I'm just detecting, hey, I've got an on-client event, the action is released, and therefore I should do the effect at this C frame, at this charge. So let's play this. It should all work. Oh, we can't really see it. See the charge particles there and the little craters there, but we can't see it since we don't have any dummies to test it on. I'm gonna grab a couple dummies from somewhere else. Make sure your dummies are unanchored, otherwise they won't be affected by body velocities or any velocity in general. Can't move them at all. So boom, you can see it bounces them back. That's kind of delayed because the game isn't ready yet, but after a little bit this should fix up. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. Can't spam it. Well, I can because it's like 0.3 seconds cooldown, but I'm going to increase the cooldown now and let's see if the cooldown actually works. I'm going to set the cooldown to 5 seconds. So I'm going to charge it up. Boom. I'm spamming it. I can't do anything. Let's wait 5 seconds. Okay, cool. We should be able to charge. Yep. And boom. Looks pretty nice. And then as you can see, all the effects scale. It scales nicely too. So you can see small crater, big crater. You can like stop it halfway, you know, do a medium-sized crater. It's pretty cool. I like it. This actually took me quite a long time to make, so if you guys like this, make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel, really helps me out. Join the Discord, you know, a lot of people in there who can help you. And also I'm trying to get the monthly showcase contest rating thing where I go and play your games and give you guys feedback. I want to make that a little bit more competitive since we actually have monetization, and hopefully I will be able to like give some small prizes to the winners, you know. And also make sure you check out my animator's stuff. He does some pretty nice work. I like that stomp right there, he made that. I'll put his links in the description as well. Thank you guys for watching. It really means a lot to me, and I will see you guys next time.